Vote on a ceasefire for hostages deal is expected to happen now on Saturday. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is sending a President-elect Trump a very clear signal. We'll have that later. Plus, a NewsNation exclusive. Attorneys just filed a class action lawsuit against SoCal Edison. That is the big power company in Los Angeles. The suit claims their equipment started the deadly Eaton fire in Altadena, California. The lead attorney, with their evidence and what this could mean for cleaning up California, will be with us in just a minute. With that, we welcome you to the Ferris Network on television. First tonight, the world's most deliberative body, the United States Senate, that meets in the building behind me, has now become almost exclusively a forum for fundraising and social media clips. That's our Why It Matters segment tonight. 3 days of the Trump cabinet confirmation hearings leave us with a single conclusion. Seriousness is dead in American politics. Just watch how these hearings have unfolded. Senators ask unserious questions in the most serious of times.
Would you carry out an order to shoot protesters in the legs?
I saw 50 Secret Service agents get injured by rioters trying to jump over the fence, set the church on fire, and destroy a statue.
That sounds to me that you will comply with such an order. You will shoot protesters in the leg.
Are you okay with waterboarding? Senator, the law of the land is that waterboarding is not legal.
Under what circumstances will you prosecute journalists for what they write?
I believe in the freedom of speech.
Have you ever made unwanted requests for sexual favors or committed any verbal or physical harassment or assault of a sexual nature?
No, Senator, I have not.
I know that this is an important priority of you and solar power. Sorry. That's okay.
Almost saved by the bell.
That was the fossil fuel industry.
Tomorrow, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, Trump's pick to lead the Department of Homeland Security, is going to have her hearing. If current trends continue, we know exactly the line of questioning she will face by Democrats over and over and over again. It's not going to be about policy in terms of the Border Patrol or how to deport illegal immigrants who have committed violent crimes. It's not going to be about how to stop al-Qaeda terrorists. It is going to be over and over and over again about the killing of a dog that she wrote about in her book.
How utterly heartless do you have to be to shoot a 14-month-old dog in the face?
What kind of judgment did you use when you did it? What kind of judgment did you use when you put it in the book? And what kind of judgment did you use when you doubled and then tripled down on it?
Why would you brag about it in a book? I don't get. Is she trying to prove something to Trump?
I just wonder why you concluded that a young dog was untrainable and not just take it to a shelter.
That will go over and over and over again tomorrow. Thomas Jefferson said, "The government you elect is the government you deserve." Senate Democrats are avoiding serious policy questions, and in the process, they're showing us that they'll be the last group of people to figure out what the rest of America now understands. Calling Trump supporters sexist, election deniers, Hitlers, Nazis, bitter people who cling to their guns and religion, deplorables, it doesn't work. It makes the majority of Americans really angry. The New York Post editorial board was quick to point out the Democrats are grandstanding through the Trump nominee hearings because cheap shot politics, New York Post words, is all they have. Democrats aren't interested in governing. But it goes beyond a lack of interest, perhaps. They show an inability to do anything but engage in the soap opera of cable TV. Yet they are not cable TV hosts or panelists. They are United States senators. There is supposed to be a difference. Case in point, New York Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, who shouted at Defense Secretary nominee Pete Hegseth for more than 2 minutes. She had 7 minutes. She used more than 2 minutes of it to shout at him before finally asking a question.
I have many concerns about your record and particularly your public statements. So please explain these types of statements because they're brutal and they're mean and they disrespect men and women who are willing to die for this country.
Well, Senator, I appreciate your comments, and I would point out I've never disparaged women serving in the military.
With this, Democrats are depriving America of the vital counterbalance on policy. They're making a mockery of the advice and consent clause of the Constitution. The framers put it in for a reason. Secretary of Defense, for example, would advise the president during the crucial moments before launching a nuclear strike. Experience and judgment do matter in this role. And Democrats did precisely nothing to bring any type of understanding to Hegseth's worldview. There wasn't a lot of discussion about how he would advise the president in those hours. To borrow a phrase from my favorite movie, The American President, we have serious problems, and we need serious people to solve them. Kamala Harris said Trump was the unserious candidate this election cycle, yet 3 days into these all-important hearings, this is Democrats' moment. And Democrats in the Senate aren't taking these hearings seriously. We begin tonight with Mark Halperin, longtime ABC News political director, who now hosts Two-Way TV, I think by far the best political show on the internet. Also the author of Game Change and Double Down, 2 books that are the reason I got into covering politics. Mark, it's always a treat to have you here. Is this proof that the Democrats have a plan or have absolutely no plan, therefore their worst instincts set in?
Leland, if you're going to stake your hopes on senators performing like adults at hearings, you might as well be a fan of the Washington Generals. They will let you down every time. I actually think this is far from the worst I've seen, but I share your point of view. If the Democratic Party thinks the path back is this, they're just as confused as they were during the election about how to win in the age of MAGA. They're ways to hold the nominee accountable, to get valuable information, and, by the way, ask serious questions. And there's been some of that. But this is all tactics, no strategy. This is all about trying to do damage to Donald Trump and not to figure out a way to be adults, be serious, and pick their fights. So I've been disappointed, but as I said, I'm not surprised. The party is in the wilderness right now, and Donald Trump, for the most part, has nominated people who either are very accomplished and impressive or have prepared really well for their hearings. And so you're not seeing a lot of success. You've got poor tactics and strategy against very well-prepared nominees.
You're a keen observer not only of the current situation, but of history. And we've learned with Trump, have we not, that the more you come at him but don't kill him, metaphorically, or his nominees, it only makes him and his now incoming administration stronger. I may have this wrong, but Donald Trump, his administration, his political capital are in a better shape today after 3 days of these hearings, probably after tomorrow with Kristi Noem, than he was on Monday.
Well, no question. And Hegseth set the pace. His team did a very skillful job of reviving his nomination, which was given up for dead by folks in Mar-a-Lago, getting him his hearing. And then, again, you can disagree with him. You can say he's not qualified for the job. But there's no disputing that he was extremely well prepared. They had gamed this out, and that's part of it. This is a gladiatorial contest, and it does involve theatrics, but it also involved substance. And even on the substance, they didn't try very hard, but they didn't damage him in any meaningful way with the Republicans, which is what this is about. This is one of these situations, and Leland, I'm sure you had the same experience. Pretty much everyone I know, people in finance, people in law, people in politics, people in media, total civilians, they looked at the performance of the Democrats so far, and they said, I could do better. Like, anybody could do better. How can these people whose job it is both to advise and consent and try to hold the Republicans accountable, how could they do such a poor job? And it's a bit of a mystery, but it is what it is.
So is it the idea that these folks, and they are members of the most deliberative body in the world, they will remind you of that they are just this low quality, or that politics is now attracting such a low quality of intellect and of understanding and of seriousness that America, to quote Jefferson, has gotten the government they deserve?
It's just much mystery as the ingredients in a crunch berry. Just It's hard to explain because even the smarter ones don't do a good job. But I'll say again, go back to the Benghazi hearing with Hillary Clinton. Go back to the impeachment hearings with Joe Biden. The level of Republican incompetence during those hearings, equally inexplicable. There's something about this that they're good ones. The younger viewers will not remember John Dingell and Henry Waxman, two Democratic members of the House. Go on YouTube and watch the way they conducted inquiries and inquisitions of people who were witnesses before them. But they're the exception. For some reason, these members of Congress, there's other stuff they can do. They can raise money really well. But they don't seem to be able to do this very well in either party most of the time.
Yeah, those will be the first searches those two men have gotten on YouTube in years when our viewers go back.
How about the ingredients for crunch berries? That's going to get some searches, too.
I wasn't even going to ask what a crunch berry was, partly because I didn't want to know, but sounds delicious. Next time we're together, we'll have one. Where is, Mark, the Liz Cheney, right? She was heralded for standing up to her own party. Where is the Liz Cheney of the Democrats? Where is the Bulwark or the Lincoln Project, real money behind holding Democrats to account from inside the Democratic Party?
Well, the person who's doing it, much to the surprise of many, is John Fetterman, right? He met with Trump at Mar-a-Lago. He's talking about supporting some of these Republican nominees, and he's saying, I'm just not reflexively against them. Now, Marco Rubio, I think, is going to get north of 30 Democratic votes, maybe more. Significantly more, because he's a senator and because they see him as a strong candidate. I think the part of the story of this transition and of this confirmation process, although there are some Trump nominees like Pete Hegseth whose credentials are, to be euphemistic, unorthodox, there are a lot of very qualified people. And again, one of the big stories, and it has an implication for the failure of the Democrats to do much damage, is people predicted for 2 years, if Donald Trump wins, he'll only be able to find, and he'll only want to find, D-level MAGA sycophants to fill the jobs in the government, that there won't be good people. And Scott Bessent and Marco Rubio and Governor Burgum and some of these others, these are very well-credentialed people. Yeah. And the Democrats are treating them like two-dimensional cartoon characters, and it's not going to work.
Yeah, Bessent and Burgum both today I thought were exceptionally impressive, just as individuals. Agree, disagree. With them. Mark, after saying Pete Hegseth's credentials were unorthodox, I think we're going to add diplomat to your intro from now on. It's good to see you, my friend. Welcome back after the new year. We'll keep watching two ways.
Great to see you. Great to see you. Belated Happy New Year. Thank you for your kind words. And Crunch Berries go in Captain Crunch cereal.
Got it.
Just so you know. All right.
Next time you're on set, we'll have Captain Crunch for you. Monday on NewsNation, the inauguration of Donald John Trump. Live from D.C. with NewsNation Politics powered by The Hill. Inauguration Day coverage starts 9 Eastern, 8 Central. Joe Biden says fear the incoming oligarchy. Who knew there was snow in D.C. falling? Why the world's CEOs and titans of industry turned on the Democratic Party.
More than a century ago, but the American people stood up to the robber barons back then and busted the trusts. They didn't punish the wealthy. Just made the wealthy play by the rules everybody else had to.
Republicans' dismissal of President Biden's farewell address last night comes at their own peril. In particular, and probably exclusively, this part of the speech.
Today, an oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead.
Welcome to the party, Mr. President. We've been saying this for years now, going all the way back to September of 2022. Billionaires in this country made nearly $2 trillion between March 2020 and May of this year. That's $2 billion a day, $25,000 a second. In other words, it pays to be a billionaire. Just a few examples. Elon Musk's net worth rose $230 billion. Jeff Bezos, now worth an extra $37 billion. Bill Gates, up $31 billion. John Kennedy, he came from one of the richest American families, understood that what's going on right now can't work. Of course, it's kind of rich for President Biden to be criticizing the rich. Pun intended. After all, earlier this month, he gave the Presidential Medal of Freedom to George Soros, and his son accepted it. That would be the definition of oligarchs. The fundamental feeling of unfairness never works out well for the ruling class. Just ask the Russians and the French. Democrats are angry, though, that they no longer have a monopoly on the oligarchy. They were just fine with oligarchy when it was on their side. Now, not so much. The past 3 months have seen the oligarchs move from the resistance camp to Mar-a-Lago. Literally. Power loves money, and money needs power. With Tesla and X's CEO Elon Musk, Amazon's Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg at the inauguration, plus a few other billionaire pals of Donald Trump, there will be well over $1 trillion in net worth surrounding Donald Trump when he takes the oath of office. The American dream is built on a feeling of fairness. Break that sacred bond and it won't end well. With us now, opinion editor at Newsweek, author of Second Class, How the Elites Betrayed America's Working Men and Women, Batya Ungar-Sargon. Batya, it's always good to see you. Thank you. You think I have that right? The Democrats weren't mad until the oligarchs turned on them?
It's so amazing. You know, over the last 10 years, the Democrats tried to convince us that when they win elections, it's democracy, and when they lose elections, it's fascism. And now they're doing the exact same thing with oligarchs. When the oligarchs are on their side, you know, everything's fine and dandy. And then the second they move to the other side, suddenly we have a problem, Houston. But of course, the truth is it's complete and utter nonsense. We just oversaw the largest political realignment in American history. The Democrats used to be the side of labor, and the Republicans were the side of the country club. And over the last 50 years, what's happened is a total reversal. Democrats won with Americans who make over $100,000 a year, and Trump won with Americans who make under $100,000 a year. Now, 65% of Americans who make over $500,000 a year are Democrats. 75% of political donations that came from hedge funders went to Kamala Harris. 9 of the 10 richest counties in this country are full of Democrats. It is an absolute confession for the Democrats to try to accuse Republicans of being the side of the wealthy. Their economy for the last 50 years has been an upward transfer of wealth from the pockets of the working class into these very elites that they pretend are Republicans. They're not. They need to look in the mirror.
Okay, but in the mirror, don't both sides see the reflection? And I'm wondering, when you talked to working class paycheck to paycheck voters across America, I don't think they really cared whether the oligarchs were Republicans or Democrats. It's still that same fundamental feeling of unfairness, no matter if it's blue or red, right?
Honestly, working class people do not have class resentment towards billionaires. They admire them. They often see them as jobs creators. They feel resentment towards the people in the top 10%, the top 20%, which is the Democrats' base, who look down on them, people who are basically rent seekers in the knowledge economy who don't produce anything. I will say, I think you're right about Elon Musk.
Hold on. What is a rent seeker in the knowledge economy?
I'm sorry. Someone who produces things that are not real, as opposed to a person who works with their hands for a living, who actually is producing value, a service or an object, not like us, Leland. We're rent seekers in the knowledge industry.
Okay.
I will say, I think you're right. I think Elon Musk is a huge problem. You have allowed me to talk on the show before about something that nobody wants to admit, which is his close ties to China. We saw this whole H-1B visa blow up where he was pushing foreign workers over American workers, insulting American workers to their faces, calling them the R word. Vivek Ramaswamy joining in, saying Americans are too stupid and lazy to have these jobs. These are the oligarchs on the right. Fortunately, Donald Trump has a very good track record of telling the elites on his side where they can get off and standing with the base. And I hope he'll do that with Elon Musk as well.
Yeah, that may be the real question, right? About whether or not he's willing to tell Elon Musk that he has to stand up to the Chinese, because the Chinese have so much control over Elon Musk when it comes to Tesla and the stock price of Tesla because of lithium batteries, because of the Chinese market, on and on and on. This continues to be something people don't get. And I think you do, which is why I want to talk to you about it. Progressive Hill staff, right? So these would be like Bernie Sanders staffers, the squad staffers. They wrote a big letter saying they want a 32-hour work week. They think that would be more fair for them. these are the people who run around Capitol Hill telling everybody how important they are at drinks afterwards. But what it showed to me, I think, was this fundamental, continued lack of understanding by the progressives of what actual working class voters care about.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I honestly think this is why January 6th was such an alienating topic, because the Democrats in power at the time, they faced, 4 hours. Okay, I get that they were afraid. There were crimes being committed around them. But these are the same people who absolutely could care less that their own constituents are living in crime-ridden neighborhoods and they won't lift a finger to help them. These elites are always making it about themselves. Hello, what happened to the idea of service? You are there to serve. You are in a job that is physically unbelievably easy to serve people whose jobs are unbelievably hard, physically demanding. They are more tired than you will ever understand you can even be that tired. How about a little humility?
Yeah. Baya, you don't spend a lot of time in D.C. Bless you for that. I do. Humility among Hill staffers is harder to find than a snowflake in July in Florida, but I digress. It is good to see you as always. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, you too. We first wrote about this in War Notes. That's our daily newsletter. Comes out just after 4 p.m. Insight and analysis on the top stories of the day. You can reply to the email with your thoughts. See you on social media at Leland Vittert, Instagram, Twitter, warnotes.com to subscribe for free. Donald Trump has enemies and allies, but very few friends. Bill O'Reilly is one of those friends. He joins us with new reporting on what day one of Trump's second term will look like. There's only 4 days left until Trump steps foot back into the Oval Office. And Donald Trump is a complicated man. He's difficult to understand until you understand what motivates him. It's primarily one thing: winning. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern, we give you an unprecedented amount of access to the president and his personality. Set your DVRs right now. You'll see it through the eyes of one of his very few friends, Bill O'Reilly. They met 35 years ago. They spent countless hours together, on and off the record. Bill just spent time with the incoming president down at Mar-a-Lago and laid out firsthand what he wants to achieve in his second term. What has to happen for him to earn the legacy that he wants?
He has to fulfill his campaign promises. He's got to stop the madness in immigration. He's got to provide a stimulant to raise wages for working class Americans. This is why he wants the tariffs. And he has to calm it all down overseas, which he succeeded in doing his first 4 years. So if he does those three things, he'll have a very successful second term.
Bill O'Reilly with us, host of the No Spin News, BillO'Reilly.com, author of the book Confronting the President, No Spin Assessments from Washington to Biden. Bill, good to see you as always. What does day one of the Trump presidency look like?
Well, he gives a speech at noon, and then they have a little parade, but I don't think he's going to be in the parade because of security reasons. Then he goes and salutes the military guards. Then he goes to the Oval Office. Then he signs a bunch of executive orders about the border, immigration, energy. He'll knock out a lot of regulations the Biden people put in. And he might write a few other executive orders that, have not been really widely discussed. He told me his speech is going to be 45 minutes. I said to him, 45 minutes for you when you riff on everything is like an hour and 15. It's going to be freezing cold. And it may even snow a little bit in D.C. on Monday. I don't think he should go more than an hour with that speech. It's going to be real tough for the crowd to sit there. And then he's got a couple of other addresses on Sunday before where he's got a MAGA rally in the Caps arena. He's going to some candlelight thing where he's going to stay. I mean, the guy's going to be all over the place. So I'd like to see him be very concise in his inaugural address. I'm sure there'll be people counting how many people are there, and it'll be the biggest crowd since crowds have ever been assembled. All of that is kind of predictable, but that's what the scenario is.
All right. The access that you've had to him over the years provides insights into so many different parts of his personality and to his business life in particular. You and I, in the discussion, in the book, in the special, about Donald Trump, long before he was dealing with world leaders, dealing with some other tough guys, that being the mob. Take a listen.
One of the interesting things I found out in the United States of Trump was how he dealt with the mob. And now Trump didn't break the law, but he knew that the mob controlled the cement union workers and all this other stuff, and that if the mob didn't like you, and to this day that holds, they can sabotage your project. So he sat in a room with these guys.
Is that any different than talking to Putin or Kim Jong-un? Is that kind of how Trump sees it?
That's an excellent point you just made. He'll talk with anybody, Trump, if he can get what he wants out of them. He has no compunctions. He comes in, and the worst people on earth, and Putin is one of those, one of the worst people on earth, Trump's got a pretty good relationship with him. And you're going to see a deal in Ukraine, I believe, fairly quickly.
I think that's the first time, Bill, you ever told me I made an excellent point. I've marked the tape. Keep watching it at night.
Well, I got to be honest.
Yeah.
No, look, you're a good interviewer. You listen and you're prepared. Most of these pinheads on network and cable news, they're looking at their next question. Let me give the audience a heads up. When you hear an interviewer on cable or network television say, "What do you make of that?" They don't know what they're doing. They don't even know enough to have a question. Okay? Just one of those asides from somebody who's been in business 50 years.
Thank you. When it comes to that he has no compunction, how does that play out? Is it that he'll talk to anybody but only make deals that he likes because deals are everything so that he wins?
Yeah, he doesn't make judgments about people sitting before him, and that rankles, I understand. But he's got a goal, and he knows what he has to do to succeed in whatever venture he's in. And a lot of times there are bad people sitting in front of him that have to be dealt with one way or the other. And it's the carrot and the stick. Okay. Good cop, bad cop sometimes. The man is very shrewd. You know, one of the reasons that this documentary tomorrow night on NewsNation at 9 is so valuable is that the press has never reported who he is and why he does what he does. Never. They're too busy trying to demonize him. And I'm not in that game. I mean, there are things that Donald Trump does that I don't like, and I tell him that. And
yeah, no, I have this theory. I have this theory that the reason he likes you so much, he may not want to hear it, but I think there's so few people, and this is true for every president, right, that will actually tell him the truth. And regardless of what his reaction's going to be, that smart people know they need people like that around it. You had a moment, though, not just with Donald Trump, with Don Jr., that really gave us insight into his dad's personality. Take a listen. You said this. One thing has been a constant in Donald Trump's world. He never admits he's wrong, and he never says, "I'm sorry."
Don Jr., his son, very loyal to him, said, "I have never in my entire life heard my father admit to a mistake." Unquote.
Has an unwillingness to ever back down been a problem?
Doesn't seem so. He was just elected president for the second time. So Don Jr. said he sees it as a weakness.
Is that dangerous, though, for a guy who has the nuclear codes?
No.
Always escalate to de-escalate?
That's just ridiculous. If you look at Trump's first term, he was adverse to aggressive military action across the board. Yes, he destroyed ISIS, and he had to, and he wanted to. He got Soleimani, and he had to, and he wanted to. But committing American forces and all that, Trump is smart enough to know that is never going to work again in this world. It's way too dangerous. He'll escalate the rhetoric.
Trump will always escalate the rhetoric, but not the action. We're going to hear in the documentary
what you would... Let me expand upon that.
Oh, go ahead. I'll give you the 30 seconds.
Okay. I've had two pretty in-depth discussions with the president, one on the Vietnam War and one on the Iraq War. In the beginning, he supported the Iraq War because it was presented as Saddam Hussein, deadly weapons, going to hand them off to terrorists. New York Times had it on page 1. Colin Powell came out and said it. All right, the Vietnam War he was always opposed to. He felt that there was no reason to do it. And in the Confronting the President's book, you'll see how LBJ lied the entire country about Vietnam. Horrible. So Trump is not a militarist. He does not want to get into these kinds of conflicts. And so if people are worried about that, they should not be.
Okay. It's actually one of the things we found in terms of why he won. So many young Americans, especially young men, said they really liked what he was saying about not getting into forever wars. Bill, thank you. It was an awful lot of fun to sit down and talk to you about this. I learned a lot, actually an enormous amount of insight. So it was great. Bill O'Reilly's The United States of Trump tomorrow, 9 p.m. Encore presentation on Sunday after our coverage of the rally that Bill talked about. Bill, thank you. See you next week.
All right. Thanks, Leon.
Washington Post now says it wants to tell stories, wait for the words, for all America. Where you've heard that before and why the Washington Post doing it may not be possible. And swearing an oath just 4 days. The first time he became president, the Washington Post reacted with such horror they changed the masthead of the paper. Their new slogan, printed every day, "Democracy dies in darkness." It was right there, online too. Apparently, the darkness is over because today the Washington Post announced they're going to be operating under a new mission statement, riveting storytelling for all of America. For NewsNation viewers, that slogan, All America, sounds a bit familiar. Like we launched 5 years ago, we created news for all Americans. We mean it. The whole team here buys into being fair. We don't hate Trump like MSNBC. We don't cheerlead him like Fox News. It's called journalism. Something apparently the Washington Post is now admitting they haven't been doing for the past 8 years. With us now, Colby Hall, NewsNation contributor, founding editor of Mediaite. And maybe that's the point, right? At least, what is it? The first step in recovery is admitting you have a problem?
It's like the conversion of Saul on the road to Damascus, where the people like the teased Chiron said they finally saw the light. You know, this is so revealing on so many levels. Jeff Bezos is playing ball. He didn't buy the Washington Post in 2013 as a money-making deal. He bought it for influence, and he bought it for influence in the Obama administration and hired a staff that appealed to the Obama administration. And they're the ones who came up with this self-promoting, heroic, we're going to save democracy by the journalism that we do. Well, guess what? Democracy hasn't ended, and Trump was reelected. And I think it also reveals just how myopic and how inside the Beltway that staff was. And so
I'm going to correct you. I'm going to correct you, and I don't often do that on air, normally because you're never wrong. But you said how it was. I think how it is. This is a letter obtained by CNN, written by hundreds of staffers to their boss, Jeff Bezos. We are deeply alarmed by recent leadership decisions that have led readers to question the integrity of this institution, broken with a tradition of transparency, and prompted some of our most distinguished colleagues to leave, with more departures imminent. I know the term inmates running the asylum, but this is a new level.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's exactly right. What I meant was, and thanks for the correction, but how would they intend it to be? And clearly there's a lot of people that are leaving Washington Post, but it's funny that you put the CNN report on this, because it so perfectly reflects what happened at CNN when Jeff Zucker left, right? That was also a mission to take down Trump. And when they tried to replace him with someone that had more of a centrist, a fair point of view that didn't immediately vilify Republicans, the body rejected the organ. And I think that's what you see. A lot of the current staff at the Washington Post do not like this mission of being storytelling for all of America. And,
who knows? Being fair, they don't like being fair. But it brings up a larger point, right, Colby? And I got 30 seconds, but you have it because you're smart enough to put it in just this amount of time. 2017, the resistance was alive. There was readers for the resistance. CNN had gangbuster ratings for hating Trump. The Washington Post subscription skyrocketed. Same for the New York Times. What's different this time around?
I think we're used to Trump. I think the novelty is gone, and his flouting of decorum and disruption that was going to ruin democracy has proven not to be that dangerous, right? He won. And if you're an advocacy journalist and you're saying that he's going to ruin America, you lose credibility. And I think they're trying to find a new voice.
It's hard to earn it back. That's why we try so hard every night here. Colby, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Residents of Los Angeles are fighting back the only way they know how. They're going after the city and California's power companies. Can lawsuits do what politicians will not? When we come back. Breaking news out of Los Angeles. As we told you from the beginning, the lack of funds, the cutting of the budget of the Los Angeles Fire Department was going to be a big deal. And now it's happening. Officials from the union representing LA's firefighters are demanding the head of the Los Angeles Fire Department resign for allowing these shortcomings to happen, although it may not be that person's fault, to be fair. Here's what former LAFD firefighter John Knox had to say to NewsNation's Rich McHugh.
The fact that the forest management, brush abatement, dry hydrants, lack of pre-deployment, and budget cuts, those are all issues. The fact that there's no water in the reservoirs, that's an issue. To me, it's complete and utter mismanagement.
Maybe the politician's fault, not necessarily the fire chief's fault. We focused a lot on the response to the fire, the water problems you heard about and the lack of funding for the firefighters, the focus on climate do-gooding. But very little is talked about the cause of the fire, why it started. One of America's top class action lawyers says he knows exactly what caused the Eaton fire. He blames the Southern California Edison Power Company for allegedly sparking the Eaton fire that destroyed thousands of homes. Jay Edelson, founder and CEO of Edelson PC, is with us now, just filed a new lawsuit against the company. Okay, we knew that there were going to be wildfires. What is the allegation here that takes it beyond act of God to, what, billions of dollars in liability?
Yeah, more than that. It's pretty easy, and we're not suing every utility company, and we haven't done that when we've brought other wildfire cases. The real question is whether they acted negligently. Here, our argument is going to be the main power lines, they had to depower them, shut them off, and they didn't do that. And we already have videos and photographs showing that, or at least seeming to show that the spark on those lines are what caused the fire.
Wow. Okay, so if what you are alleging is true, and we asked them for comment, they have not gotten back to us. Thousands of homes, Altadena, this is middle-class LA. This is where we really focus so much of our reporting. If what you allege is true, then what happens?
Well, one of the things, I think historians are going to look back at this era and figure out why people have lost faith in corporate America, and this is going to be a prime example. So let's look at what SoCal Edison has done since the fire. You've got a situation where everyone's evacuating. They're worried about their lives. They're worried about their homes, all their possessions. You've got 16 people who are dead. You've got firefighters heroically coming into the fire, getting injured, trying to put it out. What is SoCal Edison doing? They've lawyered up. They've hired some of the most expensive lawyers in the country, and they've got a litigation plan. And their litigation plan is to be very fast and loose with the facts, suggesting, oh, maybe we did turn off the power. Oh, okay, maybe we didn't on the main power lines, but we did with other power lines. And now the reason that we're filing for a temporary restraining order right now is that we're afraid that they're going to destroy crucial evidence in this case.
From the day of the fires, we identified on the show two main issues. One, water issues, not building the reservoirs. We didn't know the reservoir was empty, but that was where this was headed. Number two, not burying power lines. How much of that is SoCal Edison's fault, and how much of that is Gavin Newsom's fault?
Well, that's a great question. We could spend an hour and a half on that.
Okay, well, we got 2 minutes.
We've got 2 minutes.
What is it? It's a $10 billion question? It's a $30 billion question? You bankrupted one power utility because of how much you got from them for negligence.
Yeah, maybe another one too in Oregon. If it's, these companies, they play it all the same way. They don't care about actually protecting their consumers. These are homeowners. Their lives are being ruined. So, for us, the lawsuit is focused on SoCal Edison. People like you can have debates about the politics of it, and you might know my views about that or can guess. But
we've had that discussion privately.
But here, they should have buried the power lines.
But is that their fault?
Yes, of course.
So it's the power company's fault?
It is absolutely, under California law, we're going to be able to show to a jury that they should have done a lot more, like turn the power off. It's not that hard. The main power lines, turn off. They turned off other lines, but not the main power lines.
But the main power lines, you turn them off, nobody has power. You can't turn the power off for years.
No, you turn them off so that the town doesn't burn down.
So when they got the fire order, when Karen Bass went over to Ghana, they should have turned the power off.
Well, I'm not going to get into
Okay. But look, you and I have been friends for a long time, and you know the knock in this situation, right? You make billions in legal fees or hundreds of millions in legal fees, and people who had their house burned down get a coupon for a new refrigerator. Is that how this works?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, in our previous cases, people are getting, and we have trials going right now in Oregon, and we're getting multi-million-dollar verdicts where people
are getting that amount of money.
Individuals are getting multi-million dollars. No, these are not, false advertising cases. You didn't put enough Reese's Pieces in the candy bag. This is, people are losing lives. They're losing all their family heirlooms. They're losing their houses. The stories are horrific. Fire bolts being shot at them as they're trying to survive. Every time we've gone before a jury, we've won because the stories are just so horrific. And when we look at what SoCal Edison was doing, as everybody is trying to survive, it's going to be a stark contrast, and I think the jury's going to be with us.
Interesting. Jay, thank you very much. There are a lot of people who are hurting. They need your help. Thank you. We appreciate it. All right. Talk a lot about the division and the partisan rancor here in Washington. One place you often find what they call bipartisanship. Sometimes it's worth celebrating, but maybe we should say belief in America, what's good. It comes from the states, from governors, from up-and-coming stars. One of those up-and-coming stars is Governor Wes Moore of Maryland. He joins Chris Cuomo. He's a Democrat. He's going to say why he will be at the inauguration, why it's important to work together. That's coming up. I'll see you tomorrow night. Here's Chris.